Hey guys, so we're back with the YouTuber known as BlueJay. Yesterday we watched his video, Wacky War Tactics in a Nutshell, and today we're looking at the sequel, Wacky War Tactics in another nutshell. And I enjoyed the last video very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing more unhinged military operations take place. The link to this video is down in the description down below, it's always the first link. And if you enjoy my content and want to help support my small but humble channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me, and I would appreciate it very much. With that said, without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's watch Wacky War Tactics in another nutshell by BlueJay.
So, I was looking through my YouTube analytics the other day and discovered two things. One, not nearly enough of you are subscribed, and two, my audience male to female ratio is unacceptably masculine and would easily make my channel the—
I don't know, dude. 8%'s pretty good. I get like a 0.6 with women, so, you know. No women watch my channel except that 0.6 or whoever that one woman watches this channel is.
lamest frat party on campus. Now, to solve this, I did some research on female-dominated YouTube categories and found some topics.
You know, actually, I found out that interesting thing. Apparently, in the analytics, true crime is very popular among women. In fact, a lot of the true crime documentaries I see on YouTube, kind of like you know, like about serial killers and stuff, or like murders that took place, are usually women explaining it, which is really interesting. But it's also weird because they're doing their makeup while they explain it. So let me tell you about how like the Zodiac killer stabbed this guy to death while like doing their foundation or something. It's been weird. I mean, hey, it's popular, but yeah, I find that like yeah, women are really involved in the true crime category on YouTube, which is really interesting. And I find just, like, true crime is very popular among women. Even my mom is, like, big on that. She, like, watches serial killer documentaries all the time. I can't stand that. After a while, I can only hear about how, like, a dude bludgeoned a woman to death or strangled her to death or raped her so many times before I'm like, okay, I don't want to listen to this anymore. So, you know, I don't know how she can just sit down and watch hours upon hours of all that. I'm sorry, I completely sidetracked.
like beauty, style, East Asian music. The last one aside, I think this explains why my recent videos have thankfully brought in more ladies. Now it's just about keeping this momentum going until I hit a 50-50 split. So today, we're going to talk about the wackiest ways people have tried to murder each other in military history.
Heck yeah.
Again. Now, if you're anything like me, your interest in learning about creative strategies used in history is only surpassed by your disgust for the state of Missouri. That stuff with their stupid bendy tube in the sky, they just drive by and say, haha, look, it's like McDonald's but half, before heading on to a better state. Well, luckily, you can both satisfy your itch for strategy and urge to level the state of Missouri in Conflict of Nations World War III. Conflict of Nations is a free online in Egypt. Cool place, right? I mean, how could you not love what's basically a Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme park? The ancient Egyptians were a quirky folk, known for practices like wrapping mummies and cherishing life. You know, things that have no place in today's world. The Egyptians saw life as a gift from the gods, and they loved all the lovely critters in the animal kingdom so much that they made them pets, made them mummies, made them cops. Baboon police was a thing, look it up. But nothing quite compared to their love of cats. These furry felines were admired.
Yeah, that's something I've always heard. I never really looked into too deep into it, but yeah, you've heard stuff like the Egyptians worship cats or stuff like that, or that you know cats were treated like royalty in ancient Egypt. I wasn't sure if that was too much of like a kind of like a myth or anything, but it is something I've heard a lot about. So it's interesting to get some kind of confirmation. Ancient Egypt it's such a weird but like such a unique place, and considering how old it is and how many different eras of Egypt they are, that it's really such a rich historically significant place that I never really see covered much on YouTube. And I watch a lot of history videos. That's kind of what this channel is, a history reaction channel. So, and I hardly see any of the big YouTubers I follow ever touch Egypt. So, I don't know, it's interesting. You think everyone would be all over it, but I guess not.
for their rodent-catching skills and their magical and divine connection to the cat goddess Bastet. This meant that cats and animals were a sacred cornerstone of ancient Egyptian culture, a culture that the Persian king Cambyses II was very well educated in. It's the 6th century BCE, and the Persians are looking at everything not Persia, noting the unacceptable lack of Persianness, which can only be fixed with the addition of yet more Persia, and next in line for their Persian conversion excursion was their cat-loving neighbors down south. Cambyses II took his Persian army to meet the young Egyptian pharaoh Psamtik III at his fortified position at Pelusium, according to stratagems by... Polyaenus, the Egyptians were initially keeping the Persians at bay before Cambyses II decided to switch tactics. Our forces are stalled, sir. We're gonna need to do something if we want to gain the upper hand. Do not fret, Plebiscius, for I have studied the Nile folk and discovered a vital weakness. They shall cower in fear before the peril of my new ultimate weapon. Copernicus, bring forth the kitten trebuchet. Wait, trebuchet? Oh, we thought you said paper mache. What, so you didn't build my weapon or bring any cats? Oh no, we brought cats. We always bring cats. I think you missed a golden opportunity with catapults, sir. Shut the fuck up, grab the kittens. What? Grab the fucking kittens, Plebiscius. In one of the first recorded instances of psychological warfare, Cambyses II had his men paint the image of Bastet on the front of their shields and spread cats and other animals before their front lines. The Egyptian defense, upon seeing this display, refused to fight for fear of hurting the animals or striking the image of their god.
Oh, that is beyond cunning. You know, that would work on me with dogs. I'm a huge dog dude. It's like if the enemy army just brought dogs, I'd be like, no. It's kind of like when you watch a movie and it's like, I can watch people die, no problem. But the moment dogs are threatened, I'm like, please leave them alone. That is so insidious, but like genius at the same time. Wow. That's awesome.
Resulting in the surrender of Pelusium. This left many Egyptians to be massacred as they retreated to Memphis, which would fall shortly after. Now, I bet you're probably thinking, that's dumb, they're just cats. How could that possibly undermine an entire defensive strategy? But keep in mind, these cats were the divine symbols of their gods, to be protected at all costs, else risk the eternal damnation of their soul. So, switch out cats with Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, and you get the idea.
Oh my gosh.
When you think of early submarine warfare, your mind probably wanders to the German U-boats that terrorized the high seas during the more than adequate war. But what if I told you that the first successful combat submarine was actually built from an old steam boiler by a bunch of southern boys in Alabama?
Oh,
I'm
really?
talking, of course, about the H.L. Hunley. Named after the lawyer-turned-Confederate marine engineer Horace Lawson Hunley, this adorable little fishboat was designed to fight for the South in the American Civil War. Now, many thought Hunley was motivated by good old Southern patriotism and protecting the basic human right to suppress other people's basic human rights. And normally, that's a reasonable assumption to make of a Confederate. But in actuality, Hunley's driving force to build a submarine was much more noble. War money. You see, whichever lucky southern boy or girl was able to sink themselves one Yankee float would earn themselves a grand prize of up to $50,000 from Uncle Scooter, the equivalent of $1.3 million today. So Hunley and a group of engineers built and tested the hand-powered H.L. Hunley in Mobile, Alabama before it got shipped off to Charleston to deal with those Yanks and their pesky ironclads. The Confederacy began testing the Hunley in Charleston Bay with a crew unfamiliar with the controls, which is basically the same thing as asking a horse to babysit your newborn. The Hunley was preparing to depart on its first attack when there was an accident with the controls, causing it to sink with the hatch open at the dock, drowning 5 of its 8-man crew. But not to worry, a submarine can be drained and people are replaceable. The sub was recovered, cleared out of some...
That's insane. You know, it kind of reminds me of the submarine accident that happened a few years back where like that billionaire wanted to like take a tour to the Titanic and it was like, alright guys, you can all like get in my really ill-equipped submarine that didn't meet like safety guidelines, and they all went down and then they got crushed like in an instant due to the pressure. Like, nah dude, I'm already afraid of the sea, so like you could not pay me $1 billion to get into any submarine, especially a very early prototype like this. Heck no, bro. I'd rather just like be poor.
Junk, and was given good as new to Horace Hunley to take command before setting off on another test run with a more experienced crew this time. Good luck on the test, Hunley. Don't worry, I invented this thing. Okay, you go get him. I will, Charles. Okay, Clyde, get the crane ship. The Hunley sunk again, killing its creator and crew. But not to worry, a submarine can be drained and people are replaceable.
gosh.
The Hunley was recovered and finally set off on its first combat voyage, targeting the USS Housatonic, blockading Charleston. The Hunley was originally intended to tow a floating mine into its target, but this plan was labeled too dangerous as the rope could get tangled or the mine could drift into the submarine itself. So instead, they thought it'd be safer to go with a spar torpedo, which was essentially a bomb. Attached to the end of a wooden stick.
Oh.
A spear, but with an aftertaste, if you will. The Hunley set off during the night, cranking its way towards its prey, anchored 5 miles offshore. As the submarine approached, the crew of the Housatonic noticed a ripple in the water coming towards it. Enemy vessel off the port bow! Shit, it's below the water! Is that a whale? Can they train whales? Yarg, that's no whale, sonny. That be a beast of nuts and iron. Fire the guns! Phil, you're from Columbus, Ohio. Why are you talking like that? Fire the guns, you scallywag! Given the fact that submarines tend to operate below the waterline, the guns on board the Housatonic weren't able to lower far enough to fire at the Hunley, forcing the crew to fire away with their small arms to no avail. This plan is genius. Them Yanks can't even touch us. You got that right, Cletus. You got that right. Alright, boys, we're about to deliver the payload. In 3, 2, 1. The torpedo made contact with the hole near the ammo storage, exploding on impact and sending massive amounts of debris in all directions. The Housatonic sank within 5 minutes and resulted in the deaths of only 5 of her crew. As for the H.L. Hunley, the crew was safe from the actual blast itself, but their close proximity to the payload meant that they faced the full force of the shockwave propagating through the vessel, which tends to not agree with your soft tissues, like your lungs or brain. So the entire crew of the H.L. Hunley died, and it sank for the last time after a single mission. At the
That's so... I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be laughing. It's just a lot. Oh my god. So, I like that they basically had a spear for the boat. Like, one of the oldest weapons in the world, a spear. That's why polearms are king. But, yeah, and then it's like, they only killed, well, they did sink the ship of the enemy, but in terms of death and kill ratio, they got themselves killed. You know, this whole operation was really badly thought when its own creator died. You'd think that would have raised some red flags, but nope. Oh my gosh. Dude, this is why I love learning about war and tactics. This stuff is like so entertaining.
of its service, it was able to rack up a grand total of 26
Oh, wow.
kills. Only 5 of which were Northerners. It is a bit disappointing that the slave-loving land of traitors gets to claim the world's first successful combat submarine, but if it makes you feel any better, populating the high seas with over 4 times more rebel corpses than Union ones is about the most goddamn American thing you can do. And it would only be a year later that the Confederacy would decide to release their flag update 2.0. For the more than satisfactory war to really earn that promotion to World War status, it had to break out of the little European bubble it started off in. One potential area to expand the moderately stellar war was Africa, where they had already brought a little bit of Europe to in years prior with a wee bit of scrambling. However, because a lot of European control over Africa was superficial, they decided to keep the colonies neutral to avoid instability and the chance of getting overthrown by the local Africans. Ultimately, they agreed that the only thing more important than existential geopolitical conflict was ensuring white man on top. This neutrality agreement was very important to the Europeans, lasting an entire week before they changed their minds. Tanga was the busiest seaport on the coast of German East Africa, a colony that snuggled up closely with British East Africa. The Germans are right there. Oh, this simply won't do. This will not do. This won't do at all, Charles. Right then, India, take care of these blokes. Okay. Britain sent a request to the India office to attack the neighboring German colony, resulting in the dispatch of an expeditionary force 8,000 strong to the port town of Tanga. The Brits pulled up without a problem, and because the local Germans were such a puny and pathetic force, decided to enter the town peacefully to give them the chance to surrender. Alright, bruv, gonna need you to lay down your guns. Ah, yes. Sorry, man, I can't make that call. Gotta ask the Kaiser man first, you know. Ah, bosses, I get it. Yeah, no worries. I'll give you blokes 1 hour to lower your flag over there. Is that okay with you? Ja, that would be great. Perfect. By the way, we anchored a bit offshore. Are there any mines in the harbor? Yes. They met up with a sneaky little German messenger who led the Brits to believe that the harbor was mined and pretended he had to get permission to surrender. This bought the Germans some valuable time to get reinforcements and prepare for an attack.
Oh, wow.
After 3 hours, the Brits realized they just got bamboozled harder than if they'd pre-ordered a Battlefield game, so they started to land their exhausted and seasick troops on the shoreline a few miles out of town. In an attempt to make up for some lost time, and because intel is for nerds, no reconnaissance was done beforehand as the clueless troops began their two-pronged attack on the town. Concealed German defenders quickly broke apart this advance, as bullets tend to do, resulting in lots of disorganized skirmishes. The northern prong was actually making some pretty good progress. Despite some minor hiccups, like getting shelled by their own ship and retreating officers getting shot by their colonels, they managed to make it all the way to the customs house, where the Indian troops raised the British flag over the German colony on African soil. Their advance would be halted here, however, as they had to fall back to assist the southern prong, who weren't having as much luck. Those blokes were subjected to one of the new wonders of the war: machine guns. These life-reducing devices tend to sting a little, so they halted the Indian troops advancing in the south, which is totally understandable. Imagine waltzing up to a tube on a hunky metal tripod, magically sending 500 metal bees at your face every minute. Well, they didn't have to imagine that metaphor too hard, as they were also swarmed by hundreds of real bees every minute. Flustered by all the machine gun fire, massive swarms of bees descended on the British troops from the surrounding trees. Maybe the bees sought to prove that not even the MG-01 can compete with the misery that African wildlife is capable of, or perhaps it was just a desperate attempt to remedy a battlefield woefully underpopulated by bees. But either way, the Brits now had to deal with a war on two fronts. Looks like someone's a little lost. The Indian troops frantically popped off more lead in all directions than a Detroit suburb, firing.
Oh, that's amazing. War bees? I've never heard of that. Yeah, I've been stung by a bee once in my life. It was not a pleasant experience. I was limping the rest of the day. It got me under the foot. So, you can't imagine like a lot of them just running around. It'd be even worse if they were like hornets or wasps. Like, wasps have no chill. But that's interesting when nature gets involved like that, you know?
Blindly at Germans in the bushes and bees in the skies to no avail. Now that Mother Nature had established air superiority, the southern prong broke off into a full retreat. However, the Germans would be mistaken if they thought the little buzzing militia was their ally, for the bees did not believe in the magic of friendship, only pain. So when the German troops entered the bees' territory, they too fell victim to nature's air force. In the end, the British would lose the battle despite drastically outnumbering the Germans, who they generously supplied with enough weapons and equipment to last them the rest of the slightly delightful war. The Brits took upwards of 800 casualties out of 8,000 troops, compared to under 150 German casualties of merely 1,000 defenders, making this one of the most embarrassing defeats of the above-average war. So at this point...
Yes, certainly, dude. Like, they completely got wrecked and it's... They also were so ill-prepared. Despite how much advantages they had, they essentially, like, just believed the Germans for their word and got wrecked by the Germans and by Mother Nature combined. That's kind of amazing.
I'm sure some of you are probably scratching your heads, wondering how Little Bee fiasco could be considered a wacky war tactic when their intervention was nothing more than random chance. An understandable but incorrect conclusion to make. To the untrained eye, it would seem like nothing but bad luck on the surface, but if you just look closely, you'd notice that this was clearly the work of none other than Dr. Bees! I try to avoid doing too many videos on war history, because, you know, the death. But humans are curious creatures. Naturally,
alright, so that's the end of the video. Another great look into insane unhinged war tactics and stuff. He has one more video about this, so I'm going to look at that tomorrow, and we're gonna, I guess, wrap up this 3-part BlueJay series. Yeah, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.